Ever seen the map of that one thing that happened in Las Vegas that we're not allowed to talk about? Yeah, there's like a whole map on the internet. You got to check this out. So open up a search engine, whichever one you want, and type in these 4 words. That's the keyword right there. Map. It'll be like the 4th hit or something. You're looking for this one right here. Click on that. Takes you to this thing, which is a whole rabbit hole. So I don't know who made this thing, but whoever you are, you're a legend. It's incredible. Let me show you what this is. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to try my hardest to show you this stuff without getting this video taken down and my account's fucked up, because you're really super not allowed to talk about this for reasons. So this is our map right here. And over here, I've got Google Earth up so that you can see more easily. So this hotel right here, that's the Mandalay Bay Hotel. It's that one right there. And they're hosting this country music concert right there in October of 2017. And then some super effed up shit happens. And this is where the map comes in. This is all archived evidence, videos, 911 calls, autopsy reports. This video right here, for example. So when you click on it, it gives you the video. It gives you descriptions and timestamps. You can watch the video, click. So if you don't know what's about to happen in this video, don't worry, you're not going to see anything graphic. I'm intentionally just going to show you the ones where you hear what's happening. I need to remind you, you're just at a country music concert in downtown Las Vegas. And then all of a sudden, you hear that? That is exactly what you think it is. So the official story is that just this one dude just went and kitted out his hotel room with like an entire militia's worth of guns and ammunition, and then just lost his mind out the window. And just to be clear, that's exactly what happened. So everything else I'm about to show you is just like coincidences and misinformation and weird 911 reports and people just losing their minds in general. And it's mostly all fake because he's the only guy that night that did any shooting at all. Because he actually took his own life at the end of it. The cops didn't even get to his room until like an hour after he was out of there. Like, not like he never left his room. He just like, he left. Of his own accord, theoretically, on his own. He was all alone. There was no one else in the room. But anyways, that's why when you look at the map, there's all these like reportings around the hotel, and there's all this horrible shit that happened right here in the festival. That's also why there's this 911 call happening over here to the side that I listen to, that you can listen to too. You just click on the little link. It's all linked up, where he clearly describes that he had direct visual on 2 dudes carrying the things that, you know, in that hotel running in a direction, and he made a 911 call about it. That's also why up here at the Excalibur, there's like 3 different 911 calls about this of the Excalibur. If you're not familiar with Las Vegas geography, that's where our dude is, the guy doing the bad stuff. We're like down here now in that building. But wait, there's more. There's also like 10 different 911 calls from the Tropicana saying there's stuff going on inside of that building. That's all these right here. There's video, there's phone calls. Those are all 911 calls. Then there's all these eyewitness videos of them like completely shutting down this intersection for what sure seemed like them suspecting there was some bad dudes around that area. Despite, remember, there's just one bad guy, and he's just way up there in his little hotel room window, and he never left until he totally checked out of reality. While he still had like more than half of his stash of ammo just chilling with him, and the cops were not even at his door for another hour, mind you. He just was like, I'm tired. I'm going to bed, like the long bed. Totally logical behavior for someone of this persuasion. Then there's this absolute clusterfuck of 911 calls from the Bellagio. People reporting things like that. Again, to clarify, one bad guy there, that's it. But the Bellagio is like way down here. Where's the Bellagio? It's like one of these guys, I think. Oh shit, no, it's even further down. It's right here, way down here. Like, we're talking like this dude has somehow like made all of these dudes panic and think that there's something going on inside this building. Then you move up to the Mirage. There's more. Caesar's Palace, Mirage, right there. 911 call. You can listen to it yourself. It's recorded. The Venetian, same thing. Listen to the 911 call. That's not to mention that something seriously fishy happened at this helicopter tour spot right here, which you can see right here, where there's these 911 calls that came in from there, where dude's girlfriend calls and is like, yo, something super bad is happening here. And they're all locked down and they're hiding. And one woman was injured. It's really not clear what happened to Sundance Helicopters, but what is clear is there was some super weird helicopter stuff happening that night. You can see them in the videos, like helicopters that aren't police, that aren't supposed to be there, that don't officially exist. But then people started digging through the flight logs.
The same three helicopters that left earlier began to return from the north, head south across the strip, and then stop and begin to hover above the Mandalay Bay area for several minutes. By 9:50, all three helicopters hovering above Mandalay Bay turn off their transponders 15 minutes before the shooting begins, and they do not go back on until after the shooting at the festival ceases.
15 minutes before everything starts. And there's this whole rabbit hole to be done with a special kind of helicopter. I'm told that it uses its exhaust to be its rear stabilizers instead of having a rear propeller. Makes it super quiet. Anyways, sidetracked. Anyways, there's way too much here to fit into a short form video. It's already super long. I'll do a longer video about it at some point, but you should really go check out this map for yourself and just think about it, think for yourself. There's a great documentary on Rumble called Route 91. I think her name is Mindy. Did a great job of compiling the story and the evidence. She's a little intense, but But she also doesn't go into this whole deeper layer, and I don't know why she doesn't. I'm just gonna benefit of the doubt, but there's a whole layer beneath what happened that leads to Saudi Arabia. Mohammed bin Salman, the transition of the crown prince, the Khashoggis, Jamal Khashoggi getting, shall we say, julienned a year later to the day. I mean, it's literally what would happen if a Jason Bourne movie happened in real life and then the government had to cover up whatever the hell had just happened in downtown Las Vegas. This would be the story that you get. It was all just one psychopathic dude with an absolute truckload of weapons and bump stocks, mind you. Those never malfunction. And it just happened to take the police an hour and a half to even get to his room. By then, he was already just sick of the whole charade and had already gone to bed, despite having an entire cache of weapons and ammunition still ready to go. And all these other reports from the night of videos and 911 calls and people freaking out. They were just crazy Las Vegas people. They were just hallucinating, making up stories all up and down the strip. Although in a few instances, those stories did drop automatic handguns on the ground that civilians picked up and handed to police officers. Yo, I found this. It doesn't belong here. I'm for real. If you don't know about this rabbit hole, go research this rabbit hole. Rest in peace to all the civilians that unfortunately lost their lives that day, because what a tragedy. Just at a music festival trying to live your life. It's honestly really heartbreaking, because on this map, these are all autopsy reports and you can read the details, and I'm not going to go into them right now because something about that just seems kind of wrong on camera. But they're teachers and mothers and people with families, and it's just it's a little choking to actually turn it stop looking at it as a crazy story and and to actually think about the human lives in this world. Because too often the news just turns into news and clickbait and arguments on Twitter. But this is real life, and these are people's lives, and we're all people. And I think too often we forget that we're pretty much all just people. We've all got families. We all just want the best for them. And we're all generally just doing our best to do it. So yeah, tell someone you love them today. Don't trust.
When those lights flash, hear that thunder roll. When those lights flash, hear that thunder roll. Those
hear that thunder roll? Will you listen to that thunder roar? Let your spirit soar.
My name is Mindy Robinson. I'm a political commentator, a constitutionalist activist, and an investigative journalist. I actually got my start in acting where I was able to use my platform to push for the things that I believed in, like the Second Amendment, freedom of speech, and being pro-life, which turned into a lot of traveling and speaking up about all the things that I was uncovering that the mainstream media wouldn't. I focused on things like government corruption, biased media censorship, protecting children from sexual predators on social media, and exposing how the fake news media has absolutely no problem lying to us. Living in Las Vegas the last 8 years also meant I was reporting on the insane amount of corruption here that the local news wouldn't. Like how our governor illegally shut down businesses, blocked life-saving medicine, legalized giving someone AIDS on purpose, or how my county commissioners voted to censor free speech at a meeting their security assaulted us at. How I was threatened with a Class C felony for demanding an election audit by the Secretary of State and our 4-time arrested Attorney General, or how we still have no idea where the millions in GoFundMe money that Governor Sisolak and Sheriff Lombardo raised for the Route 91 shooting victims. Corruption in Las Vegas runs deep, and I have never been one to back down from calling out corrupt government officials from either party when I see them.
You'll not get away with this. We will not comply anymore. I'm glad you're getting a paycheck, and I'm glad you're sitting in your seats thinking you'll never be removed because you got election fraud on your side, but we're working on that too. Have a great day.
Thank you. Please do not clap.
Lindsey Graham, you are a traitor to the culture. You know it was rigged. You know it was rigged. Why aren't you fighting for the rights of Nevada? My free speech. I couldn't go to church. Where were you? You were not by my side fighting it. You're making millions in your 14 houses, 2 private jets, inside of stock trading to the tune of $3 million.
I will be talking about the Canadian elections at some point today. I did say even when the Conservatives were popular and likely going to win that Mark Carney was a deep state Bilderberg select, and I didn't see any other option. And as we saw last night, it came to be. And so we're going to be looking at carbon taxes. We're going to be looking at more taxes for like ESG, CBDCs, digital IDs, central banking tied to digital IDs. Again, if I already haven't mentioned this, there's going to be more censorship bills, more climate, quote unquote, catastrophes that are possibly going to be man-made and exploited and monopolized, more cyber attacks and blackouts. It might not happen in the first few months, obviously, but this is something that, again, like even in 2009, Mark Carney was literally talking to WEF about a new world order, which also included an economic world order. And for someone like myself who has at least 14 to 16 generations of family that are Canadian, French and English, and when I'm talking about English, I'm talking about people that were Irish, Scottish, English, and for multiple generations, built Canada, helped in building it, architects, engineers, people that were working on the roads, shipping, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's all getting voted away, right? And I've talked about Canadian sovereignty and how we needed Pierre Poilievre to win, despite people's opinions on him, because he was the only choice that we had that would have gotten Carney out. So people that didn't vote at all, I no offense, you're a fucking idiot. And I mean that. So I was watching Patriot channel last night and other channels, Viva Fry, and people were bragging that they didn't vote in Canada. It's ridiculous. So your vote could have possibly been stolen from you, so because you didn't vote. That's another way of election tampering that happens, by the way. Votes are stolen that way. And so that was silly to me. And people that voted PPC at this point, I voted PPC in 2021. Because of Aaron O'Toole and what he was pushing regarding COVID mandates and lockdowns and so much misinformation. And then also on the conversion therapy for children, that bill not being passed, right? And so Conservatives not even showing up to vote for that as well. Like, again, they were like very much that, like, they were in alliance with the Liberals at that time. And Pierre Poilievre wasn't the leader of the Conservative Party at that time. And after that, he was pushing to have votes of non-confidence, to end the carbon taxes, so many different things. And it's unfortunate that all of that work that he finally did with his party, it didn't help. But he also didn't help himself either, and Doug Ford as well. And I said we shouldn't have voted for Doug Ford. And then look what happened. All these contracts that are being canceled with Starlink, and ridiculousness. And again, it's going to further hollow out our middle class, our upper middle class. More people are going to be leaving now, these taxpayers, because they can't afford to live in Canada because they know the carbon tax is coming back, and other taxes, again, that's going to be aligned with the Green Fund and ESGs and digital. It's going to be ridiculous, and people, like, they already can't afford it. Farmers as well. There's been multiple farms on a regular basis that shut down because has not been sustainable. And yeah, and so we're looking at a communist country. It's actually ridiculous that we voted it in again, but I understand why. It's people that are getting our tax money, and that have not paid taxes their entire life. A lot of these people, and again, this is going to usher in replacement migration, which is already well underway, and we're going to have a bigger housing crisis. And anyways, I'm hoping not. But again, not within the first few months. I don't see that happening, but it's going to eventually happen. And we get lied to about so many different things. And CBC, CTV, they did a smear campaign, and because they don't care about Canada, they don't care about Canadian taxpayers that are funding them, state-funded fucking media, propaganda. And again, they're not going to be held accountable for the lies during COVID. The lies about Russia, Ukraine, the lies about Israel, Palestine, the lies about literally everything, and including the Freedom Convoy, and how they paint other protests as heroic and virtuous. And then even in Nepean, there's such a woke crowd. Like, even when Billboard Dave was doing a protest, a peaceful one, so many lunatics came out, and they were called by Nepean, by the school, and clearly with the people that had these flags up in their windows, these are likely the ones that called these activists, and they were violent. I will say that law enforcement did arrest a few of these people, and so there was a better job done with that. But it did still seem like there was more of a I would guess a hindrance against anyone that was on Billboard Dave's side. And again, these were peaceful, and Rebel News was there as well. And I also am frustrated with Rebel News because they completely hijacked the election, the scrum afterwards. They didn't need to have that many people, and they could have asked really important questions and not had people that are so controversial there, right? So Ezra Levant, he's been wrong about a lot of things, especially because of his bias regarding Israel and Palestine, and I've done videos on that. And so he wasn't the one, right? And Abiy Yemeni as well, as someone who's bragged about being in the IDF and what he's done to children in Palestine, and or at least discussed, openly, and it seemed very much. Anyways, there's others as well, but there were good people that could have came from Rebel News and represented them better, like Tamara Luglioni, or Sheila Gunn Reid. But the opportunity was lost. Anyways, I'm rambling on about the elections, but there was no surprises there. It's just funny that there's nothing regarding COVID. So many different Liberal MPs that said they were going to resign when they weren't popular. As soon as Mark Carney came in and the polls started increasing for Liberals, they're like, oh, never mind, I'm not gonna resign anymore. So Anita Anand, Karina Gold, David Lemeni, Dominic Bureau, all these fucking criminals that completely made bank during COVID as they exploited us and crippled us and funded terrorists in the process, by the way, as well. So funding genocides and proxy wars in other countries. They get away scot-free and then rewarded for their criminal behavior. So absolutely insanity. Absolute insanity, I mean. And CBC, again, they were looking at their paycheck. They didn't care about telling the truth at all. They wanted to have more money, and they were getting a bonus of $150 million under the Liberal platform. And so what they do, they sold Canada out yet again. So many people I know, including myself personally, have contacted the tip lines for CTV, CBC, Global News, Toronto Star, you name it, all these media outlets I have contacted, and other people have as well. And we've been very respectful, and we have offered so much information. and stuff that, again, this should be groundbreaking news and reported all over their platforms. And these cowards would just laugh, hang up, gaslight, not answer, not care. So again, they don't care about the truth. This is why they need to be defunded, and why people like Carney, who's giving them a bonus when they already get over $1 billion a year, state-funded media, leftist media, and but they're going to continue to get less popular, right? Like their demographic, it's dwindling, and people are dying off, unfortunately, but that's life. And then they're going to lose more and more viewers. And of course, the people that don't speak English or French are also not watching these platforms, but they're still voting regarding that narrative. It's very interesting. Yeah, so it's actually a sad day for Canada, expected, and it just shows just how pathetic Canadians are at this point, like so pathetic and weak. And we had people from our past that were such strong, courageous people, who even gave their lives to make it where we were a sovereign, free country. And then we have these pathetic losers that either didn't vote or voted liberal, and were like elbows up as they're literally destroying like our country. And there's no coming back from this, unfortunately. And so, but again, expected. I've been saying this since the beginning. And so I keep on saying this, but more sense, all of that stuff is coming. And there's going to be more treaties and more alliances with the EU and other internet, maybe even China. Like, this is all ridiculous. This is all ridiculous. And it's because people voted emotionally regarding Trump. Pathetic, weak, coward losers, morons that don't think critically. We're like, oh, Trump bad, even though he just got into office on January 20th. And he's doing good for the most part with this country. Again, he might get us involved into World War III with Iran and stuff like that. And it's terrifying. And he's pushing therapeutics that are, not, oh my God. So he's still backed by pharma, funded by pharma, controlled by them, the deep state. And he also interfered with our elections, even like during election day, right? Like promoting this 51st state business and talking about Carney as if he's going to help change Canada's direction, despite the fact that he has been involved in Canadian governance on the sidelines now for literally years, including in 2020 when he was hired as the financial advisor during COVID and got us into the fudging mess that we're in now. And who he's hired, Marco Mendicino, a literal criminal who lied on the record multiple times, can't be trusted, hired him as his chief of staff or whatever it was. Mark Wiseman, Century 21 replacement migration, hired him as well. And it's just nonsensical to me. But again, it's people that didn't vote, people that voted liberal, that voted emotionally, or didn't vote emotionally, that, people fought for the ability to vote. And then again, we have these pathetic, weak, coward losers that don't vote, and they think that it's making a stand. And I don't care if this offends you, because again, a lot of people that are like, watch my channel, watch Viva Fry and Jeremy McKenzie, like all of that stuff. And like a lot of people have said that they didn't vote. And I don't see how you could brag about that. Anyway.
But the most
now onto the Las Vegas shootings, and even Jean Pelletier, who was the chief of police during this event, he was also in Maui during the Lahaina fires, like conveniently, and also involved in the Diddy list, as people know. So these are all actors at the top, including heads of FEMA and UN, et cetera, et cetera. And this is the stuff they do and lie about. And this is what CNN, Fox, and CBS and they will never show you this information. So share this with your grandparents.
corrupt cover-up to ever occur in Nevada still haunts Las Vegas to this day. On October 1st, 2017, one of the largest mass shootings in America occurred at the Route 91 Harvest Festival in Las Vegas. It was a terroristic assault on innocent civilians and everything American I can think of. But if you think we don't have an answer to this tragedy because the guy responsible killed himself and nothing ever pointed to anything else, then I'll let you in on a secret everyone else here already knows.
The word incompetence has been brought forward, and I am absolutely offended with that characterization.
It's so poorly done.
It's so poorly done. I have a hard time thinking it's just negligence.
The entire thing was one big cover-up. And they got away with it because the mainstream media dropped the story almost immediately, and officials stopped giving press conferences to avoid having to answer any of the public's questions about any of the glaring inconsistencies, conflicting witness statements, or explain any of the other shootings that occurred on the Strip that night that went against the FBI's lone gunman narrative that for whatever reason they were set on from the very beginning, despite all the obvious evidence to the contrary.
Not one guy did not do all this. There is no way.
Holy shit!
This motherfucker's still ringing out right now.
What is that?
Okay, let's go. That's close. That's real close.
And then I moved. Oh, thanks.
Our SWAT took down one suspect on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay.
They did. Yeah. That's high power though. They're all the pronouns I did were all headshots, bro.
But we know, and we have multiple different calibers. So I'm just saying we have at least one suspect down. There's most likely more than one.
Just make sure. Look at his forehead.
Yeah, that's fucking dead center.
Fucking center, dude.
All right. Yeah.
Shit. That guy, see, same thing. That guy was a fucking headshot right in the fucking forehead.
Fuck, man. There can't be that many headshots with that amount of people over here. It had to be targeted. It has to be targeted.
We're getting over now, and now we're running across the street, and we hear shots coming from like Hooters, MGM area. Over there, there was shots coming from over there, and there was shots going from Mandalay Bay.
Every other person that I've talked to that did get unfortunately hit as well have all said the same things.
They know that there was multiple shooters.
Sounded like there were a dozen shooters.
The New York Excalibur shooting was right outside. It wasn't inside. It was outside. We saw the muzzle flashes.
I don't want to. I just found it in the street, brother. 223 round right here.
Anyone got a glove?
Okay. I don't send any help. I just want you guys to know.
Love it.
I have a magazine there with bullets in it, and then I have live rounds right here in these cones.
Somebody handed me a 223 round they found on the ground outside.
Outside there? That's not a 223.
No, that's a yeah.
Somebody was coming in from the here. It'd be the north side. North side? Yep. Somebody was coming in. How many? Just one? Just one.
They kept coming. That's the thing. It wasn't that okay. Let's all leave and now it's okay. No, we all started running and they came in. That's why there's no humanly possible way that guy that was the only shooter. And it's definitely someone on the ground.
Concert. I'm waiting for somebody to come through that entrance because it sounds like they're on the ground.
The gunfires approaching where we were, they just started getting closer and closer and louder and louder. And I knew we were getting gunshots that were closer to us than where they originally started. And that's when we knew we had to run.
All I know is that the burst of shots were very quick and they didn't last long. They were not 15 seconds long like the Mandalay Bay shooter was.
Now it sounds like it's coming from farther away.
There was also shooting going on inside of the Mandalay Bay.
It sounded like more than one machine gun, and it just didn't stop.
We heard gunshots from around the corner. We were in the Delano, right next to a walkway that connects the Mandalay Bay and the Delano.
Multiple shots fired.
We were the furthest VIP stages away from Mandalay Bay, and they were ricocheting everywhere where we were. So they were firing from somewhere high, and they were unloading clip after clip after clip after clip.
It was a shooter, you believe?
Multiple shooters.
It
has to be.
But it flew low enough that I could see that there was a black curtain, the door was open, and the color of the instrument panel. It flew right over our heads. As soon as it got in front of Mandalay Bay, it kind of rose up in altitude, and that's when we heard the gunshots. I turned to my left immediately, looked up at the helicopter. It was just like, what the hell? That was automatic gunfire. I'm thinking to myself, my girlfriend responds to me. She goes, babe, did you hear that helicopter? And I go, what about that helicopter? She says, it sounded funny. And I go, what do you mean it sounded funny? She goes, it just sounded weird. I go, that wasn't the helicopter. That was automatic gunfire. And then as we're talking about it, I turn my head to my left again and I look at the helicopter and I see it circle around Mandalay Bay towards the back end of it. And there's no gunshots. As soon as it comes back to the front of Mandalay Bay, you hear the brrr again. And then it flies off again.
Tell what that night, but for some reason, I just knew it was coming out of that helicopter. But I was so unbelievably certain that it was coming from the helicopter.
Yes, we have all kinds of help on the way, okay? Everything's going to be okay. We're getting officers out there. Okay?
They're going to need officers on the sky because he's flying in a helicopter.
You think he's in a helicopter?
Yes.
I almost felt like there was a helicopter above us shooting. It was so bizarre, like a war sound.
There's an active shooter on the airport. This is a blanket broadcast for all aircraft. Just a heads up.
Hey, yes, we need police. This is security at Flamingo. We just got a call right now saying shots fired in the back parking lot, employee parking lot area. Just so you know, when we had got before the shots fired, we did have a guest who brought a gun to officers out near valet. So it was a gun found also near the valet entrance.
This is fucking crazy. There's a shooter in front of Hollywood. Right across from the Air sign, and there is somebody going batshit crazy with a gun on the bridge right across from the Air sign.
We're taking in Paris.
To Paris?
Yeah.
Base at the bottom of Delano, the casino level of the Delano, and I saw two gunmen with look like AR-15 type rifles come around the corner.
Bellagio employee entrance. There's a male walking in with a rifle. Bellagio employee entrance. Units were getting a fucking TNA now. Bellagio PER. Shots being fired.
Is that what it was?
Right here. Go. Oh shit, that's machine gun. That's machine gun fire.
We were given no answers. We were given no motive. Confused people woke up the next day to find the news focused only on Paddock and the concert, with no reporting by the news of anything else that happened on the Strip that night.
Inside the Bellagio Hotel, where the sheriff is saying nothing happened, as Daniel and I were sitting where bullets were being fired.
And I know damn well I heard a gunshot inside this building.
We thought so too. Yeah, and then it never got covered.
How can that be?
No one ever talked about it.
Did you hear it?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
How many did you hear? I heard two.
Yeah, I know. And then we saw people running. Yeah,
right.
For sure.
That, but from talking to people, no one knew where the bullets were coming from. They were just flying all over the place. And see, that is the truth. And the next day, I mean, the police would
Were people talking about after the shots came from there? After, yes.
I saw casings right here.
Right around here?
So there were beer cans, there were empty drink cups, and there were maybe a dozen.
Really?
Brass 1.5 2 inch tubes spread out.
As if someone was shooting right here.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't in a pile. They weren't in a bunch. They weren't touching each other. They were spread out.
Huh.
So, yeah.
I walked over by the Tropicana. I found bullets. There was still some on the ground. But in the parking lot. Where? At the Tropicana parking lot. Part of the parking lot. Right where they made their triage, right almost by the door. All be gone.
So I sat down at a slot machine inside of Planet Hollywood. Now I hear gunfire over the sound of the casino. More gunfire, much closer. I would estimate it had to be within a half block. People are starting to pour in. So I go to the cashier. He looks at the timestamp, whatever. And so he asked me, were you here with all that went down last night? I said, yeah. He said, what happened? And so I told him briefly. He looks at the cashier next to him. He said, I told you. So she looks back at him and says, well, why are they telling you guys not to say so? He was like, I don't know. I didn't say so. She did, pointing at me. So from that, I gathered that the employees that were even there at the time were threatened to keep their damn mouth shut. Period. A whole lot of stuff went down. And almost none of it is being reported on mainstream news. Almost none of it.
No explanation was ever given about any of the other shots heard, casings found, guns found, helicopters that weren't supposed to be there, or any other gunmen seen across the strip that night. The LVPD simply wrote it off like nothing happened, which also meant they weren't pulling footage or actively investigating any of it either. To this day, it has been a constant uphill battle with law enforcement for even the most simplest of answers about the shooting.
Do you know when the security guard was separated from the other officers?
It was my understanding before I had said he had gotten separated. That was inaccurate. What had happened was he was conducting an investigation based on customers calling in, and he was personally attempting to locate what was occurring. He happened upon that doorway because it was ajar, which keyed his interest. But our officers were in close proximity. So as you can imagine by the timeline there, as soon as they came out of the doorway of the elevator, he was there. So it happened in a matter of seconds.
Officials had to be sued to release reports, autopsies, body cam footage, and to this day, many journalistic FOIAs requesting further evidence in what is supposed to be public information have been illegally ignored. For some reason, officials have outright refused to be forthcoming about this investigation on any level.
And most of you are used to how I conduct myself in these conferences, so I will call upon you and then determine whether I will answer your question.
I've read through the police reports, listened to 911 calls, police scanners, and hard-saved every video I could get my hands on before the powers that be could scrub them from the internet. After flip-flopping on timelines, refusing to answer basic questions, and raising public suspicion because authorities felt the need to be so evasive about everything, videos relating to evidence of multiple shooters or alternative narratives were banned, censored, and suppressed on major social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Because, Lord forbid, people question the FBI's narrative of a 64-year-old man unloading over 1,000 rounds in 10 minutes with absolutely no motive, no history of mental illness, no known political affiliation, and all the while shots are being heard across the strip long after they find him dead.
SWAT shot him. That's a shot.
They sure didn't want us to see everything that happened on Metro 5's helicopter cam that night, or how hotel staff helped load all the gun cases up their own service elevator. But they sure wanted us to know that he was dead and the case shut and closed by purposefully leaking out an immediate photo of a fresh blood stain on top of a dry one? Huh? And how did he get underneath the rifle here? Or throw the pistol he supposedly uses up and over so far behind his head? And what's the blood stain on his chest about? And if you're wondering, no, there's no forensics available on his blood splatter to prove he actually committed suicide at all. And the coroner put Paddock's time of death down as noon the next day. So we have no idea when he actually died. That didn't stop Lombardo from declaring in his final report that Paddock died in a very specific 2-minute window based off, nothing. Although I did find buried in a report that their heat sensor stopped picking up readings in the room at that time, which, considering it takes a body over 12 hours to become cool to the touch and 24 to the core, sort of implies he didn't just off himself a minute earlier. I guess we weren't supposed to notice these things? I'm hoping this video will break through the media blackout and reignite the public's interest to start demanding the answers from authorities we rightfully deserve. There were absolutely multiple shooters using multiple calibers at different locations at night. And it was by definition a terrorist attack. Either foreign, domestic, or both. And it was purposefully covered up for reasons I hope after this will come to light.
There is no conspiracy between the FBI, between LVMPD, and the MGM. Nobody is attempting to hide anything.
As much time as I put into this reveal, I owe an immense credit to the work of all the citizen journalists that came before me, searching for their own answers. Between the electronic hotel door lock information that revealed both doors to both rooms opening from the inside at the same time that night, proving Paddock wasn't alone.
A key card was tried from the outside, denied.
Mm-hmm.
Key card was tried from the outside again, denied. And then what we call the impossible event happens. The door opens from the inside.
To audio examination of the gunfire by a sound editor with 20 plus years experience, proving multiple guns were used at the same time.
Look at the symmetry. Look at that symmetry. They're in the same place. They just moved up a few feet. Shots coming from the same point. One gun here. Here, they're back, maybe 15 feet.
I just hit my head. Go that way, go that way, go that way.
You can hear the guns in the background, and you can hear the primary in the background. I hope you can. At least you can see it in the waveform because it's all erratic. Look at the difference between that and that. Same guy, same body cam, same officer, same alleyway. Big difference. So these are some of the questions that have to be answered. I hope this helps, and eventually may the truth prevail. God bless America.
To a detailed breakdown of radar imagery from that night that shows covert actions by aircraft that the LVPD never tried to explain or even acknowledge.
And they're going to stop directly behind the Mandalay Bay. So this first one hovers right there, right over Mandalay Bay, right over the event center, kind of oval-shaped roof. Here comes the third and the fourth. Notice that first helicopter, what happened is it turned off its transponder. These other two are about to do the same, and they turn off their transponders as well. And they remain there, no transponder signals come back on for the duration of the shooting. So they turned off their transponders at about 9:52, and no more transponders will appear in that area. But what's interesting is that even though we have no radar data showing flights in that area, video evidence clearly shows flights being in that area during the shooting. I want you to notice as we watch this clip, the flashes coming from behind and in between Mandalay Bay and Delano Towers. There's no aircraft in the air at this time, according to flight data, but we see lights flashing in there, which have to come from aircraft because there's no other buildings tall enough for them to be coming from this perspective. The flashes are inconsistent. They're not normal, consistent flashes like you would see from beacons or anti-collision lights. So it's possible these flashes are coming from a muzzle.
To uncovering that Metro knew by 1 a.m. that night that there were 3 women other than the girlfriend registered to Paddock's room that Lombardo never felt the need to investigate, explain, or even publicly mention.
And he's registered there with 3 other females. I don't know if you want all their names.
Why is it documented, right? That 3 women were inside the room and they redacted their names from the document. And for some reason, not only did they lie about Paddock being alone in the room, but they are hiding who these women are. And I think that we're going to really learn a lot more about what happened in Vegas once we learn the identities of these 3 women.
To in-depth interviews and autopsy reports that don't line up with Metro's conclusion of a single shooter.
Could this be where the shooters are and that it's not coming from room 32-135? Why don't we see that aircraft on Flight Radar 24? At this moment in time, there's nothing on Flight Radar.
And while anomalies can always occur with ricochets, etc., it doesn't explain how so many trajectories don't match up to a gunman on the 32nd floor in a building across the street. Multiple witnesses stated in reports they saw people get hit straight on, as if the shots were coming from ground level, and how the shots sounded closer the further they ran away from Mandalay Bay.
All of a sudden, we hear the little whizzing going by us, and the bullets are just flying by. And when something's coming up and down, or at least from a different angle, they're either going to hit the ground, they're going to a lot of different things are going to happen. When someone's shooting from a straight horizontal line, it's just going to keep flying. As soon as we heard a little break in it, we knew we had to keep running.
So I did a little bit more digging, and based off what I was able to match between victim reports and the anonymous autopsy findings using things like gender, weight, eye and hair color, tattoos, and the descriptions and placement of their wounds, was able to analyze several of the more unusual trajectories. Am I an expert at this? No. But I can read reports and do basic math, which is apparently more effort than the FBI put into this entire investigation. They didn't run ballistics to match the bullets from the victims to the guns in the room either, none that they're willing to release anyway. Most fatalities were hit at the diagonal and downward angle you would expect from someone firing from Mandalay Bay, but not everybody. Those yellow circles are people that were hit with a near-perfect parallel ground trajectory, within a difference of a half inch or less. While some could simply be ricochets, this seems more like a pattern, and coupled with so many witnesses stating they heard shots coming from the main stage and at ground level, certainly deserves more of an investigation than it was given. At least 19 out of the 58 autopsies appear to have parallel trajectories from what I can tell from these reports. That blue circle, the second closest victim to Mandalay Bay, he was hit almost vertically from the top of his head down. That extreme elevated trajectory happened to at least 3 other individuals that night.
It's important where all the bodies were found, right? The first 20 we call were found in front of the stage, and a lot of them had headshots. Then there was a group of 6 bodies that were found in close proximity right between the church and the festival grounds. So this would be on the street on the east side of the festival grounds, which is behind a long privacy wall. They were found along the fence line. So there's no way that a person, if you can't shoot what you can't see.
Speaking of weird coincidences, there's also the never reported on by mainstream news of Australian Brian Hodge, who claimed almost immediately in both social media posts and in interviews that he was the one staying in room 32-134 next to the shooter. You know, the one directly adjoined a paddocks that Metro had to blow in because it was locked from the other side. Where he would claim to be during the shooting would change several times, but he also unintentionally in those early interviews mentioned very specific details about the shooting that weren't known to the public at the time. He knew a special hammer was used to break the hurricane-proof window in the room.
So there's no balconies. He actually he checked in the hotel on Thursday and came with a specific hammer that's designed to break that glass. Whatever the glass is that casinos have, whether it's double pane or bulletproof or whatever it is, but was able to smash that glass and then actually shoot out through the glass that way. So cracked a massive big hole in the window pane.
And much like the FBI and LVPD would falsely push, he also claimed Paddock checked in a Mandalay Bay on Thursday the 28th, which is interesting because, number one, he supposedly just checked in himself the night before, so it's not like he could have ran into Paddock those days earlier by accident. And two, the real check-in date was actually on the 25th, which for some reason, Lombardo decided to lie to the public about during a press conference the next day, even though dispatch logs showed he 100% already knew the real check-in date was the 25th, and that there were 3 other women other than the girlfriend registered to his room. Hodge also assumed the security guard that walked down the hall was shot and killed, which, given the amount of bullets that came through the door, was shocking he wasn't. Hodge also manipulated the GPS on his phone that day to hide his whereabouts both before and after the shooting. He lied about hiding in the bushes as officers clearing the area never saw anyone in them, and he also posted what many have dubbed a trophy photo of him at the crime scene. Listen to this interview he gives to the Australian press less than 24 hours after the incident, where he's so enveloped in pushing the narrative that things, aka gun rights, need to change in America, that he prematurely reveals knowing almost exactly how many guns were in the room, even though news stations at the time were reporting less.
Time to reflect on it, but one thing that's really kind of come out of this, I think it needs to change. I think they really need to think about it, and I realize that it's not safe. The security here is not great. I've always loved that Vegas is very free. You come here, people have a good time. But last night it really kind of hit me that I was like, I don't think that's the right way going forward. I don't think being able to walk in with 20 machine guns and not get noticed and have scopes in your room set up for 3 days.
There were 24 guns found between the 2 rooms, 22 semi-automatic rifles, if you minus the bolt action and the revolver. How did he know that? And how did he know how long they were there for? His politics leaned left, if you couldn't tell from his anti-gun rhetoric, and almost immediately an Australian Antifa group on Facebook took credit for the shooting, stating one of their own had committed the attack on what was, let's keep it real, a mostly Trump-supporting crowd. Fact-checkers deemed it fake, not because they actually checked it out, but because the account only had 800 followers, which sounds like 800 too many idiots for me. There are actually fake Antifa accounts out there run by right-wing trolls, maybe some of them my friends, but last I checked, even joking about a terrorist attack will get you a knock on the door from authorities. Well, when they're actually trying to solve the crime anyway. How Brian Hodge knew so much insider information about the shooting before anyone else did, we'll never know, because the FBI's top brass forbid anyone, including their own agents, from investigating him. and he was allowed to leave the country without even being questioned about what his connection to Paddock was. He was actually registered to room 32314, not 32134, although you have to wonder why he recalled the room number of the shooting over his own. 134 was registered to Paddock's girlfriend Mary Lou Daniels using her comps and not his for whatever reason. You know, the one he wired $100,000 to and whose fingerprints are on the bullets inside the magazine.
His girlfriend, Mary Lou Danley, you see her there, who claims no foreknowledge of the shooting spree, has admitted now that her fingerprints are probably on some of the ammo because, get this, she helped load the cartridges. I have other information on her, too. You're not going to want to miss that coming up.
Who, coincidentally, like Hodge, is also connected to the Gold Coast casinos in Australia. She shut down her Facebook almost immediately, but not before people spotted the ISIS beheading videos her friends were posting. Funny how Facebook can't get sex trafficking and snuff films off their platform, but they'll probably ban this video just for criticizing the narrative. LVPD also didn't think it was necessary to take witness statements from most of the other people on the floor that night. Kind of hard to come up with a motive when you're not investigating any possible leads as to why. Speaking of reports the LVPD didn't want us to see, Paddock had 19 guns at home, so why did he buy 23 more leading up to the shooting? Does the FBI really want us to believe the majority of the shooting that everyone swears was automatic was done entirely by ARs with bump stocks that magically never jammed as they're so notoriously known to do?
How does a bump stock compare to a standard rifle?
So basically it's using opposite forces. Put your finger there, you pull forward, pulls the trigger, and the recoil sends it back. And then you pulling forward causes it to pull the trigger again, and the recoil sends it back. So it creates a bounce effect. But you have to get it just right, or else it's severely inaccurate.
Standard rifle on the right, bump stock on the left, 30-round magazine. The bump fire malfunctioned on the first test. Here's the second.
It's severely unreliable, and I wouldn't waste my money on it. They can have it.
Don't get me started on how they supposedly know how many times each gun was fired, either. So they had the manpower to match ballistics on 1,000 casings, but not on the bullets that hit 58 people? And how do they know exactly what order the shots were and when they hit or missed the fuel tanks? Is there footage that shows that we don't know about? LVPD also states that Paddock used 15 different guns at night, 8 of which don't have scopes. Instead of, just reloading one of the guns that had a scope with any of the bajillion loaded magazines laying around, he really didn't think he needed a scope for this shot. Not bad for a 64-year-old man that, according to his pilot license, wasn't allowed to fly without corrective lenses. Could only hit the fuel tanks the size of a house 2 out of 8 times, though. Weird. Why does this feel like a gun sale gone bad? Why is the FBI protecting what could be the main accomplices to this crime? Why, in less than 24 hours after the incident, and with overwhelming evidence to the contrary, were authorities so insanely insistent that there was only one shooter and he was dead?
Right now, we believe it's a sole actor, a lone wolf type actor.
It was a sole shooter. There is no further threat that we're aware of, no immediate threat.
I want to emphasize we believe Paddock is solely responsible for this heinous act.
The quickness it was dropped from the media when they normally capitalize on tragedies like this for their own political gain tells me they were worried people would start connecting dots they shouldn't be. A pro-Second Amendment crowd full of country folk, veterans, and gun
Reload.
reason, Lombardo decided to lie to the public about during a press conference the next day, even though dispatch logs showed he 100% already knew the real check-in date was the 25th, and that there were 3 other women other than the girlfriend registered to his room. Hodge also assumed the security guard that walked down the hall was shot and killed, which, given the amount of bullets that came through the door, was shocking he wasn't. Hodge also manipulated the GPS on his phone that day to hide his whereabouts both before and after the shooting. He lied about hiding in the bushes as officers clearing the area never saw anyone in them, and he also posted what many have dubbed a trophy photo of him at the crime scene. Listen to this interview he gives to the Australian press less than 24 hours after the incident, where he's so enveloped in pushing the narrative that things, aka gun rights, need to change in America, that he prematurely reveals knowing almost exactly how many guns were in the room, even though news stations at the time were reporting less.
Time to reflect on it, but one thing that's really kind of come out of this, I think it needs to change. I think they really need to think about it, and I realize that it's not safe. The security here is not great. I've always loved that Vegas is very free. You know, you come here, people have a good time. But last night it really kind of hit me that I was like, I don't think that's the right way going forward. I don't think being able to walk in with 20 machine guns and not get noticed and have scopes in your room set up for 3 days.
There were 24 guns found between the 2 rooms, 22 semi-automatic rifles, if you minus the bolt action and the revolver. How did he know that? And how did he know how long they were there for? His politics leaned left, if you couldn't tell from his anti-gun rhetoric, and almost immediately an Australian Antifa group on Facebook took credit for the shooting, stating one of their own had committed the attack on what was, let's keep it real, a mostly Trump-supporting crowd. Fact-checkers deemed it fake, not because they actually checked it out, but because the account only had 800 followers, which sounds like 800 too many idiots for me. There are actually fake Antifa accounts out there run by right-wing trolls, maybe some of them my friends, but last I checked, even joking about a terrorist attack will get you a knock on the door from authorities. Well, when they're actually trying to solve the crime anyway. How Brian Hodge knew so much insider information about the shooting before anyone else did, we'll never know, because the FBI's top brass forbid anyone, including their own agents, from investigating him, and he was allowed to leave the country without even being questioned about what his connection to Paddock was. He was actually registered to room 32314, not 32134, although you have to wonder why he recalled the room number of the shooting over his own. 134 was registered to Paddock's girlfriend Mary Lou Daniels using her comps and not his for whatever reason. You know, the one he wired $100,000 to and whose fingerprints are on the bullets inside the magazine.
His girlfriend, Mary Lou Danley, you see her there, who claims no foreknowledge of the shooting spree, has admitted now that her fingerprints are probably on some of the ammo because, get this, she helped load the cartridges. I have other information on her, too. You're not going to want to miss that coming up.
Who, coincidentally, like Hodge, is also connected to the Gold Coast casinos in Australia. She shut down her Facebook almost immediately, but not before people spotted the ISIS beheading videos her friends were posting. Funny how Facebook can't get sex trafficking and snuff films off their platform, but they'll probably ban this video just for criticizing the narrative. LVPD also didn't think it was necessary to take witness statements from most of the other people on the floor that night. Kind of hard to come up with a motive when you're not investigating any possible leads as to why. Speaking of reports the LVPD didn't want us to see, Paddock had 19 guns at home, so why did he buy 23 more leading up to the shooting? Does the FBI really want us to believe the majority of the shooting that everyone swears was automatic was done entirely by ARs with bump stocks that magically never jammed as they're so notoriously known to do?
How does a bump stock compare to a standard rifle?
So basically, it's using opposite forces. Put your finger there, you pull forward, pulls the trigger, and the recoil sends it back. And then you pulling forward causes it to pull the trigger again, and the recoil sends it back. So it creates a bounce effect. But you have to get it just right, or else it's severely inaccurate.
Standard rifle on the right, bump stock on the left, 30-round magazine. The bump fire malfunctioned on the first test. Here's the second.
It's severely unreliable, and I wouldn't waste my money on it. They can have it.
Don't get me started on how they supposedly know how many times each gun was fired, either. So they had the manpower to match ballistics on 1,000 casings, but not on the bullets that hit 58 people? And how do they know exactly what order the shots were and when they hit or missed the fuel tanks? Is there footage that shows that we don't know about? LVPD also states that Paddock used 15 different guns that night, 8 of which don't have scopes. Instead of, just reloading one of the guns that had a scope with any of the bajillion loaded magazines laying around. He really didn't think he needed a scope for this shot? Not bad for a 64-year-old man that, according to his pilot license, wasn't allowed to fly without corrective lenses. Could only hit the fuel tanks the size of a house 2 out of 8 times, though. Weird. Why does this feel like a gun sale gone bad? Why is the FBI protecting what could be the main accomplices to this crime? Why in less than 24 hours after the incident, and with overwhelming evidence to the contrary, were authorities so insanely insistent that there was only one shooter and he was dead?
Right now, we believe it's a sole actor, a lone wolf type actor.
Was a sole shooter. There is no further threat that we're aware of, no immediate threat.
I want to emphasize we believe Paddock is solely responsible for this heinous act.
The quickness it was dropped from the media when they normally capitalize on tragedies like this for their own political gain tells me they were worried people would start connecting dots they shouldn't be and continuing to ask questions that authorities couldn't answer. At the end of the day, they shot at a pro-Second Amendment crowd full of country folk, veterans, and gun enthusiasts that I can tell by reading through these statements immediately recognize the sounds of multiple shooters and different calibers that don't match up with the single shooter narrative they're being force-fed by authorities. They recognize that shots were coming from all around them, even with a blinking strobe light planted halfway up Mandalay Bay that weekend, confusing people as to where the shots were coming from. And man, wouldn't you like to know who put that there, considering that could have been a purposeful distraction?
It's not that blinking light now. Two shooters right there in that room.
These were good people, men shielding women from harm, civilians risking their lives to help strangers and assist law enforcement. At the end of the day, they didn't just give up and bow down to terrorism. They deserved to know what really happened that night. Las Vegas is one of the most surveilled cities in the entire country. So where is all the footage? Why are we stuck with such a half-assed, incomplete investigation with so many holes in it for one of the largest attacks in our history? This cannot be chalked up to pure incompetence or lack of resources. Something this poorly done has to be intentional. We've got Sheriff Lombardo nervously bumbling through press conferences, not even knowing the most basic facts of the case, and misleading the public for whatever reason on purpose by changing the timeline to either suit his poor reaction time or to benefit Mandalay Bay and their legal liability.
My attempt, like I stated earlier, is to give you the information as I know it, unverified, to calm the public, not to establish a legal case. Everybody understand that? No question, sir.
Wait, what? Did he just admit he's not trying to establish a legal case? Why don't you just come out and say you have no intentions on solving this? Why is his biggest concern calming the public? Wouldn't the public be more calm if we actually got some answers about this tragedy? And why does FBI agent Aaron Reeves creepily nod in agreement every time Lombardo lies or says something dumb? Why can't he answer any of the public's reasonable questions? Like, who took Paddock's hard drive from the room? It certainly wasn't Paddock. He's dead on the floor. We know someone was actively monitoring the hallway, so was that what was on the stolen hard drive? Why was Paddock's house left unguarded and allowed to be broken into? Are we really supposed to believe the excuse that the police left it unlocked and the wind blew it open? Really? Why were officers told multiple times to turn their body cams off? Keep in mind, Sheriff Lombardo is not above lying to the public. He's the same guy who lied under oath about what really happened at the Bundy Ranch standoff, even though the whole thing was on camera. Federal corruption and Lombardo's perjury cost Clive Bundy 2 years of his life in jail. And that was after the feds tried extorting over $1 million from him in cattle grazing fees over land that wasn't even theirs. Then you've got Lombardo's friend, former Commissioner Steve Sisolak, who was not governor at the time, but capitalized on the massacre to get his face in front of the cameras to further his own political career, even going as far as to brand the Route 91 shooting generically as 1 October, which was specifically done to help make people forget it ever happened. It's a term only law enforcement and news channels really used, as most people outside the state won't even know what you're talking about unless you tell them you're specifically talking about the Las Vegas country concert shooting. Once he used the tragedy to become governor, Sisolak would go on to do a slew of mobby corrupt things, like put his good friend and campaign donor, the CEO of MGM himself, Jim Murren, in charge of the economy-destroying COVID task force, which is a whole other expose for another time. Jim Murren, if you don't know who he is a radical leftist that served on the National Infrastructure Advisory Council under Obama and donates to CARE, which has serious known ties to Islamic terrorism. Interesting. He also sold off $10 million of MGM stock 3 weeks before the shooting, and then MGM had to pay him $32 million to leave on top of that. So instead of getting punished for the extreme lack of security, he made out, but not before he laid off a ton of workers to pay for it. Under Murren, MGM also had the audacity to sue over 1,000 of their shooting victims and their families, claiming the casino wasn't liable, and then ripped the rest of them off by only having to give out a fraction of the expected settlement costs that MGM's insurance covered most of anyway. Which I'm sure has nothing to do with the judge in the case also being the daughter of the current vice president of security of MGM at the time.
You are the only person that we know of at this point who's actually opted out of the lawsuit and fired your lawyer.
I went to my lawyer and said, can you tell me who the mediator is going to be? I didn't get a response. And I was doing research and I said, please tell me it's not Jennifer Tagliati. And he writes me back, he says, it is Jennifer Tagliati. I said, she's the one person that should never be around this case because her father is the VP of Security and Surveillance for MGMRI at the time of the event.
There's a lot to unravel here, so let's break it down minute by minute, all the things they don't want you to know about the Las Vegas Route 91 shooting. According to LVPD's report on what was on Paddock's home computer, 3 months before the shooting, Paddock sent an email to himself about 3 random AR and bump stock sale ads. If you're thinking that doesn't make sense and that can't be all they found and why are they so obsessed with bump stocks, let me just get this out of the way right now. Nothing will make sense about the conclusions Lombardo and the FBI come up with about the shooting. According to SEC filings in August, George Soros bought $42 million worth of put options on MGM. That means he's betting their stocks will fall, and when he does, he'll make a killing. Because, hey, is it even really an evil conspiracy theory without George Soros somehow involved? Starting on September 10th in 2017, 3 cryptic messages from the same anonymous user pop up on Reddit foreseeing an upcoming planned false flag event in Vegas. He warns people to stay away from large crowds because the government is working on something called a high incident project to make the American public think places with security aren't safe enough and create more regulations requiring metal detectors in casinos, etc. He specifically states OSI and the Chertoff Group will be involved, although he's not certain of the exact date, but that Vegas is on their mind. What's interesting is that Snopes scoffs at the messages as unproven, not because they couldn't prove they were false or true, but because they deemed it too vague to be taken seriously. Sounded pretty specific to me. If you don't know who Chertoff is, he's Bush's former Secretary of Homeland Security, where despite the major conflict of interest, he demanded agencies install certain security machines, which he just so happened to own the companies for. He's better known as a co-sponsor of the Patriot Act, where he used the tragedy of 9/11 to push through legislation that allowed the government to spy on Americans through our phones and computers without a warrant. If you're not familiar with Snowden, watch Citizen4 for homework tonight, and you'll quickly understand how the deep state is able to blackmail and control everyone into oblivion. It's also in September that MGM execs approve a $1 billion share repurchase program. Yet despite that push, by the end of the week, Jim Murren would divest himself of 80% of his own MGM stock. Did he foresee something drastic happening that would lower their worth? Aside from Mandalay Bay, MGM Resorts also owns Luxor, Bellagio, New York, the Mirage, and the MGM Grand. Keep those in mind for later when, despite overwhelming evidence, including 911 calls made by their own security, they all deny shootings occurred on their property. Murren is also a member of the National Infrastructure Advisory Council, where he advises how to implement security technology in public places. Does that sound familiar? And yes, increased security to the financial benefit of those investors and those products is exactly what ended up happening, just like those ominous Reddit posts said. It ultimately didn't work out because it turns out no one wants to be constantly irradiated and go through TSA-like screening just to get to their room or eat dinner. They made money off trying, though, which is good enough for these kinds of people. On September 30th, a police report taken after the shooting stated a witness believed they saw Paddock playing craps at a table with 2 Hispanic women. It could be something, it could be nothing, we'll never know. because this is just one of the many possible leads the public is never made aware of on how it actually concluded, or if it was even looked into at all. I have to also mention that the day before the attack, the powers that be were running active shooter drills across Las Vegas, which added to the confusion, especially when people tried calling hospitals. It also fed into the hoax theory that no people died because they were searching for and hiring crisis actors for the same thing all week, which was used as an excuse by the media to condemn and censor all alternative theories about the tragedy. People died there. That's not the conspiracy. The conspiracy is why so many government-run active drills turn real at the same time in the same manner. Remember 9/11, when there was a huge confusion going on with air traffic controllers because one of the drills they were running also involved hijacked planes going into New York skyscrapers? Or the Boston Marathon bombing, where yet again the government was running a bomb drill that turned real, and instead of just addressing it, the feds decided to suspiciously and combatively blow off reporters about it instead.
Why are you denying that those bomb drills Monday morning? We got photographs on Infowars.com, folks, of contractors.
Next question, please. Next question, please. Yes. Yes.
There's a lot more instances than that and definitely more to it, but that's beyond the scope of this video. Let's just say if you hear the government's running terrorist drills in your area, leave town immediately. From 3:24 a.m. to 7:36 a.m., Paddock plays video poker on the casino floor. Then he returns to the smaller side room. I can only assume he took a nap after gambling all night or something, because nothing really happens again until 12:03, when the doors to both rooms open from the inside at the same time, which means there were at least 2 people inside the room the entire time, and both guest cards are checked to see if they work.
Especially when you're looking at anomalies, and when you have the door opening from the inside in both rooms at the same time.
That means there was at least 2, if
At
not
least 2, if
more.
not more. At least 2, if not more.
I have no idea at this point how Lombardo can insist Paddock was alone that night, but let's let the charade continue, shall we? From 12:12 to 12:26 p.m., Paddock goes to the garage to move his car into valet. Apparently making it downstairs and all that mayhem and getting his car to valet is Lombardo's idea of Paddock's getaway plan. Notice how Newsweek, who has wrongly personally fact-checked me before, claims the getaway plan failed because SWAT moved in, which we all know didn't happen for over an hour. This fake getaway plan is necessary to explain why Paddock paid off all his taxes before this suicide mission. If you've ever gotten your car out of Las Vegas valet before, then you know there's nothing quick about it. 12:29 is the last time Paddock is captured alive on video as he returns from the valet to his room. Since he has adjoining rooms and it can get confusing, I'll refer to 135, the large suite he was found in, as his room, and the smaller 134 as the side room. At 12:23, a room service ticket is made for 134 for 2 entrees. At 3:35, a single gunshot is heard and reported by a guest staying on Paddock's floor. We only know about this incident because fellow Route 91 investigator Nephi Kaliki heard it from the witness themselves.
And I need to be sensitive about this because the person that was on that floor, we have contact with that person. One of their family members died at the event, but they were staying on that same floor. They heard a gunshot at 3:45 in the afternoon. And at 4 o'clock, around the same time, the locks start getting manipulated for 18 minutes in a way that is not explainable for normal operations.
Was this single gunshot an accidental discharge? Or maybe even when Paddock was actually shot? We'll never know because, like I said, the coroner lied about the time of death on the autopsy that had to be personally sued to release. The report contains such hidden gems like there being unexplained signs of blunt force trauma to Paddock's calves and knees. After that single shot is heard, there's a moment of inactivity followed by a series of weird hotel key testing that occurs to both doors 134 and 135 in what seems to be an attempt to capture and alter the electronic door system code. By the way, did the hotel ever investigate that complaint about the early gunshot, or did they cover it up because not checking into it makes them even more legally liable than they already were? At 6:40 p.m., the door to Paddock's room is opened from the inside, then the deadbolt is released, and then the door is closed again, opened again, and closed again. Okay, how the hell did the door just open with the deadbolt still on? It seems by now someone has figured out how to manipulate the electronic door locks, as impossible sequences and constant testing like this continue on both doors throughout the night. At around 9:20 and about 45 minutes before the shooting begins, a Hispanic woman pushes her way to the front of the crowd at the festival, starts telling the woman in front of her she was going to die and that everyone around them was going to die tonight. It causes such a commotion that security has to come to remove her and the Hispanic male she was with.
Did security get their info? Was this ever investigated at all?
So there was a lady who pushed her way forward into the concert venue into the first row, and she started messing with another lady and told us that we were all going to die tonight.
Do you know why she was saying that? I mean, was this after the shots were fired? Or?
It was about 45 minutes before the shots were actually fired, but then she was escorted out by security.
At 9:29, both Paddock and the side room doors open from the inside at the same time again. Another impossibility unless there's at least one other person in the room, and now it's only 35 minutes to when the shooting begins. There's also another weird instance where it opens and the deadbolt is still reading as closed. It seems important to someone to be able to manipulate the deadbolts in particular. Starting at 9:38, radar shows that 3 helicopters, supposedly registered to Mustang Leasing, depart from the vicinity of Mavericks and head north off screen.
And you can see their call signs, their tail numbers. That third one turned its transponder on a little bit late.
5 minutes later at 9:45, the same 3 helicopters that left earlier begin to return from the north, head south across the strip, and then stop and begin to hover above the Mandalay Bay area for several minutes. By 9:50, all 3 helicopters hovering above Mandalay Bay turn off their transponders 15 minutes before the shooting begins, and they do not go back on until after the shooting at the festival ceases. We know they were physically there because multiple eyewitnesses and videos catch them going back and forth between Luxett and the Mandalay Bay throughout the shooting. At 9:55, a helicopter blips on screen with no call sign and heads north out of the area, followed by another one about a minute later, also without a call sign, and they both head north.
And then we see that again, a separate helicopter, different timestamp again, heading up north, no call sign.
At 9:59, security guard Jesus Campos is doing his rounds on door ajar alarms, and however long that takes him. He couldn't open the stairwell to 32, so he goes back down a floor to take the elevator up instead. He reports the barricaded door and hearing what he thought were rapid drilling sounds while checking on the other room, implying the shooting was already going on at the time. That's when bullets come down the hall through Paddock's closed door at him. Shots also come down the hall sometime during all this when engineer Steve Shuck is there to check on why the stairwell door was braced shut. Another excuse given as to why the LVPD didn't breach the room right away was because of this impenetrable mighty L bracket, which honestly I feel like even I could have kicked in an emergency. There's no proof or fingerprints or anything that I could find that suggests Paddock put it in, although that didn't stop Metro from claiming they knew he did anyway. At 10:04 p.m., the 2 helicopters with no call signs return from the north, presumably the same ones that left a little earlier, and land at the airport. Mavericks is at the beginning of the runway in the blue circle. These 2 land here at the highlighted part at Sundance Helicopters, which is now out of business. Funny thing is, that location will end up receiving multiple 911 calls throughout the night about shots being fired, a woman injured with a gunshot in the hangar, and people hiding from suspects on the premise in a possible hostage situation. These helicopters you see here are likely just coming back from a tour, judging by their route, but what the hell happens there later? Seems like it's at least worth looking into, but there are no records this was ever investigated at all. At 10:05 and 27 seconds, the first scattered shots at the festival began, which many initially thought were fireworks or firecrackers, with several witnesses claiming they actually saw a man weaving through the crowd letting firecrackers and poppers off at this time. Their obvious concerns were that he was providing some sort of initial cover or tricking bystanders into not panicking as much, or even gauging the wind for snipers. And no, the police never looked for that suspect either. Metro also seems to be confused as to how many shots there were, which according to them were either 2 or undetermined, and I'll tell you why. Now, when I listen to the video, I specifically hear 2 very clear close rifle shots coming from the main stage area, followed eventually by a mixture of a couple of close shots and further away automatic gunfire with echoes. Multiple witness statements also mention hearing very distinct and different caliber weapons at this time. For instance, this witness not only heard the automatic firing from Mandalay Bay, but also something more like a handgun closer to her vicinity in the parking lot. This man staying in a balcony near the foundation room in the middle of Mandalay Bay heard automatic gunfire coming from his right and rifle fire from his left. Another man whose room overlooked the concert claims he heard not only the reverberating outside shots, but closer, non-reverberating, shorter round bursts as well. This woman stated she heard the first 2 pop sounds that sounded like they came from inside the concert grounds that sounded different than the rifle sound she hears a little later. This man staying at the Four Seasons also hears 2 different calibers going off. What's strange is that these handful of supposedly scattered test shots are responsible for at least 1 immediate fatality. Witnesses saw a woman go down before any of the Magic automatic firing began, and I can't tell if they're all talking about the same victim or different females? Given a third of the fatalities were headshots, it seems a lot more targeted than it was random. Here's the video, and you tell me if you can hear two separate guns. And also take notice from here on out in all the videos, all the helicopters flying around Mandalay Bay that aren't supposed to be there. At 10:06 and 7 seconds, the first volley of automatic gunfire begins. An off-duty officer working the event stated in his report that it sounded like people were shooting at each other. His partner stated, as many others would that night, that it sounded like the shots were coming directly from the main stage area, and it was so loud he would have bet his paycheck that there was an assault team somewhere on the ground.
I would y'all say we pick it back up just a little bit. What's going on?
At 10:06 and 53 seconds, the second volley begins.
Get down! Get down!
At 10:07 and 21 seconds, the third volley of automatic gunfire begins. At this time, another witness at the event, Joe Napoli, stated he tried to escape east toward the parking lot, but like many witnesses stated before, the shots there sounded even closer, and people on the other side of the fence were screaming for him to turn back because there was a gunman on that side as well. People didn't just see someone with a gun in the parking lot that could have been mistaken for an officer either. They actually saw someone firing toward the crowd. He eventually flees north out of the venue, passing bodies in the street there, and like many others, saw dozens of shell casings scattered near Tropicana, near that black circle at the top. And yes, gunmen were spotted multiple times by multiple witnesses at Tropicana throughout the night where these casings were found. The closer shots he heard coming from the parking lot near Gate 7 will later be confirmed over the police scanner. That second black circle, near Giles and Alibaba, is not only where casualties were found, but where police would find several live rounds and a loaded magazine in the street. This is probably the time to mention that broken pieces of a firearm mag and 4 cartridges were also found on Gate 2 on the opposite side of the venue. We only know about this because photographs of it were buried in a police report as evidence. But yeah, one shooter. There's also the gun that guy finds in the street, which I can only guess is about here, judging on the video, because, of course, that's never mentioned by Lombardo either. At 10:07 and 50 seconds, the fourth volley of automatic gunfire begins. At 10:08 and 43 seconds, more single shots can be heard, and one of the closest officers to Mandalay Bay sees a man on a platform, more than likely the bed, firing out of 134, the side room, out toward the fuel tanks. Only 8 casings were recovered in that room, and only 2 hit the tanks. But one of the few ARs that were reloaded were also found in that locked from the other side room.
I want to come back to center. I want to come back to center. Is it this bus?
Yeah, it's an open line with a female saying there's a shooting. Female saying there's a shooting.
It's over there.
Shots, fire. There's many people down. Stage left.
Stay on this side. We need cover.
Covering the southwest corner between Mandalay Bay and the venue.
At 10:09 and 47 seconds, the fifth volley of automatic gunfire begins. At 10:10 and 59 seconds, the sixth volley of automatic gunfire begins.
Go! Everybody go!
Go! Run! Keep your head down! Go! Keep your head down! Go! Run! Keep your head down!
At 10:11 and 34 seconds, the 7th volley of automatic gunfire begins.
Keep your head down! Run! Go! Keep your head down! Go! You guys go! Get up and go! Go!
Starting at 10:12, a group of what will eventually be a line of 8 helicopters start to take off from Mavericks, although not all of them will show up on radar as having actually left from that pad. This will play in later as the helicopters that previously turned their transponders off put them back on as they escape out with this group to the north. At 10:12 on the police scanner, there are now official reports of shots coming from Gate 7. Now, Gate 7 is interesting because whoever made the original graphic for the map to the concert venue doesn't have a Gate 7 listed, but has 2 Gate 2s. Gotta love bargain printing. But we know it was in the southeast corner because of witness statements, and it makes numerical sense. So I've made the corrections here for reference. You might also notice there's an abandoned motel in the middle of the venue, which any bad actor could have used to stage an attack from. And no, I don't see anything in the police reports about any forensics or an investigation being done inside there at all either. Later, 2 separate 911 calls would come in about suspicious men at the Oasis Apartments, which, as you can see on the map, is right across from the Gate 7 we're talking about. In one call, they even state that they could see 2 men changing their clothes in the bushes. I'd love to see the security cameras from those apartments at night, but it doesn't seem as if the FBI or the LVPD did much of investigating into anything. At 10:12 and 8 seconds, the 8th volley of automatic gunfire begins.
Go! Run that way! Go! 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 Stay down! Go! Go! First stop! No, wait. I don't know.
At 10:12 and 35 seconds, the 9th volley of automatic gunfire begins.
Stay down! Run that way, against the wall. Stay down. Keep your head down.
At 10:13 and 30 seconds, the 10th volley of automatic gunfire begins.
Run that way.
After the 10th volley, you'll notice one of the helicopters that's not supposed to be there heading east over the venue.
Keep your head down, run that way.
It's also at this time that a south-facing security camera in a parking lot 780 feet east of the venue picks up people running and trying to help, but ultimately leaving a deceased victim on the ground. For reference, this is its view. The only reason this video is known about is because it was sent to a Route 91 victims lawyer who then took it to Tucker Carlson. Being so close to the venue, the man didn't understand why the FBI and LVPD hadn't reached out to him or even asked if he had any security cam footage from that night. While Tucker is focused on why cops left a body there, what I found interesting is that you can clearly tell a helicopter was either hovering extremely close or landing nearby between 10:14 and 10:16, and 10:16 is when the shooting ends.
You can see a large amount of wind and debris. Apparently that's due to a helicopter hovering overhead.
This matches the footage I just showed you of a helicopter leaving Mandalay Bay and flying east. Remember, the east side is where people reported hearing shots, seeing gunmen, and where bullets, casings, and a magazine were also found. At 10:14 and 49 seconds, the 11th volley begins.
Keep your head down, run that way. Keep your head down, run that way.
Also at 10:14, Mandalay Bay security calls 911 and informs them that their security guard was shot and that it definitely came from 32135. There should be no confusion at this point where the shots from the hotel are coming from, yet Metro won't try to enter the room for over another hour. I find it interesting they fired one cop for cowering the hall, when really they were all on standby orders on the floor below supposedly waiting for SWAT, not that a proper SWAT team ever shows up, and not that that's ever explained why. It ends up being a mismatch of original responding officers at breach, including 2 K-9 units without their dogs. It's also at this time that everyone was still saying that there were 3 shooters. At 10:15 and 15 seconds, the 12th and final volley of automatic gunfire from Mandalay Bay begins.
Between 10:16 and 10:18 is the 2-minute window, according to Lombardo, where he magically claims to know Paddock killed himself. Okay, whatever. And at 10:16, the same 3 helicopters that had disappeared earlier when they turned their transponders off above Mandalay Bay suddenly blip back up on the screen as part of that group of 8 that takes off up north. 2 of them pop up closer to the vicinity of Mavericks, while a third one blips up on screen between them in the air as they pass by the strip.
Is all 3 call signs from the original 3 helicopters that were behind Mandalay Bay that never returned show up there. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You might be thinking about the helicopters that landed near Maverick helicopters, but they did not actually land at the Maverick helicopters location where these aircraft took off. They landed over here. So how did they get back over there? And they magically appear back on radar just after the shooting stopped at 10:16. Another interesting thing that I noticed was that the last helicopter in the original group of 3, call sign N848MH, actually turns its transponder on, pops up right there. It just popped up, and I'll show that to you frame by frame here. But it's like it never actually took off from Maverick helicopters, but perhaps left the shooting scene and joined that group formation and turned its transponder on right when it got into that group formation.
It's also at this time that a Southwest plane comes onto the radar with the call sign SW84119. The problem is it takes a sharp angle turn over the airport, impossible for an airplane to do, and heads directly over to the Mandalay Bay to hover above the Delano roof. This is only 2 minutes after firing at the festival ceases. I shouldn't have to tell you this, but this has to be a helicopter masquerading under a false call sign, as the original number is registered to a Southwest Boeing 737, whose flight records have it landing later at 10:22. While both shared the same call sign, and I would love to know what the radar controllers were saying about this the whole time, the other mystery Southwest plane on the tarmac's tail number was N227W9 and not WN4119. That's a different aircraft completely. What the hell was going on at McCarran Airport that night? This is the part that bothers me, because the only entity I can think of that can get away with entering a heavily urban airspace, illegally turning off transponders, using fake call signs, and all the while being able to escape the notice of radar techs and employees at the airport would be our own government. I guess now we know why they keep refusing our FOIA request for the communications with McCarran that night. Oh, I'm sorry, did I say McCarran? I mean the Harry Reid Airport now, since corrupt Nevada politicians took it upon themselves, without so much as even asking the people who lived here, to rename it after one of the most divisive, hated politicians the state has ever known, as their own vanity project. Gotta love what Las Vegas commissioners' priorities are in the middle of a huge economic crisis. At 10:21, the group of helicopters that previously took off to the north start to return south, and they all land at Mavericks like nothing ever happened. At 10:22, after hovering above the Delano roof for several minutes, the Southwest planecopter turns off its transponder. If you're wondering that, if despite all the distractions going on that night, if anyone happened to catch a helicopter near the roof of the Delano,
Damn, look at that shit. They got the helicopter right in front of that thing.